Call of Duty says big changes are coming, but will it be
Call
enough
of Duty
for
just
season
released their
2?
Season 2 roadmap, and if you missed our last video, this is supposed to be a significant update, but maybe not for the reasons you might think. Call of Duty is promising that in Season 2, they'll make great strides to put the game in the right direction, and more specifically with Warzone. They said, "We've made the decision to prioritize focus on gameplay tuning, adding more quality of life, and addressing ongoing bugs. This means that in order to deliver meaningful improvements to our players, new content originally planned for Season 2 has been shifted to create bandwidth to address foundational issues." Which, in my opinion, is the absolute right call here. The game is genuinely so down bad, and it's not even because of the foundation of the game. It's actually because there is so many bugs you can't even play it.
We died to a hacker at Old Town. Texas died to a hacker in City.
Taking a quick glance at the graphic of the Season 2 blog, as T-Dog pointed out here, this is the first time in what feels like years that Warzone occupies such a small spot in the Call of Duty blog.
That's true,
as opposed to usually it overshadowing multiplayer completely. So let's talk about what's coming in Season 2 in multiplayer, Warzone, and zombies, and what you can look forward to seeing next week. Now, I'm mostly going to be focusing on Warzone because that's normally what I cover, but let's take a quick look at a couple of things coming to multiplayer and even maybe some zombies. Multiplayer is going to see a couple new maps, a couple new game modes, gunfight is coming back, and even some new perks. Slipstream will be a red perk in slot 3 and it will increase your base sprint speed, but you'll lose the ability to tactical sprint.
Is it worth
which honestly I think is a pretty cool perk, and I do think this might be good even for the CDL side of things. As a lot of the pro players have talked about how tac sprint ruins Call of Duty, I think this might be what the perk they use from here on out. And another perk, Redacted, will be a red perk in slot 2 that marks an enemy player after you get a kill. And lastly, the War Machine kill streak is back. As you know, it's a Treyarch game.
But cheating is still an issue. Doesn't that technically go in the cheater's favor? Because now there's something to say like, oh, if they're cheating, well, they're walling on one side, and then if we already know they're cheating, but they're using that perk, they're just going to assume that someone's there and start shooting there. So there's going to be less assumptions of cheaters, but we know they're still cheating, right?
You know what had to return. And I'm not a zombies guy, but Black Ops 6 does seem to be looking pretty good if you are a zombies fan. Here is what they're changing. Zombies fans will be getting a new map, which actually looks pretty damn cool, a new wonder weapon called the Staff of Ice, and some new gameplay content like the return of the Death Perception perk and 3 new Gobblegums: Dead Drop, Modified Chaos, and Quacknarok. Now let's get into what you probably are here for, and that is Warzone Season 2. At the top of the new Warzone blog, it reads this: Season 2 focuses on gameplay tuning, quality of life improvements, and addressing ongoing bugs. Which again, in my opinion, is exactly what they need to do right now before Verdansk drops. Their post then went on to say this: as announced in the recent community updates blog, we've made the decision to prioritize focus on gameplay tuning, adding more quality of life improvements and addressing ongoing bugs. This means that in order to deliver meaningful improvements to our players, new content originally planned for Season 2 has been shifted to create bandwidth to address foundational issues. These improvements won't come all at once, rather, they'll be staggered across the season and with a quite few quality of life changes coming mid-season. Now, we've heard this before. This is where I start to get a little bit concerned. When they say things like, these improvements will not come all at once. It can be a slippery slope here to possibly never get these things that they tell us. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that they're finally communicating with us, but I really do wish in this article that they posted last week that they would have told us what's coming in Season 2 and what's coming in Season 2.5. It kind of makes you question what's going to be included in Season 2 and what are the things they're going to keep for a rating.
You're worried as if there's no content update to it, even though they're doing quality of life updates. You're kind of worried like, well, should I still play it even though you're improving the quality of life? Is there still other things for me to play, do, whatever?
Rainy day. And they follow up by saying this: rest assured, a full selection of content is still accessible with access to our maps Area 99, Urzikstan, Rebirth Island, available on Season 2 launch, and with BR rank play coming during the launch window. So this does tell me a couple things. It does tell me that Season 2 ranked will not come out at launch. It says during launch window. Now this could mean a couple hours after launch, or it could even mean a week after launch. I do hate when they use these terms, and I really wish they would be really dead set on telling us when things come out. I also get a little bit worried when they say things like a full selection of content, because to me, as we've seen in the past, normally the playlist modes aren't the greatest and they remove things like BR quads from the rotation. Are we going to continue to have limited modes within Rebirth and Big Map? Are we going to get Rebirth quads only? Are we going to get Urzikstan trios only and then Rebirth duos only? Or are we going to get everything? Overall, as an opening
I wish they would
statement,
keep
this sounds
solos
like what we were
year-round,
expecting with the community
honestly,
update.
with
The
rotations
focus
of
is going to be
maps.
on gameplay improvements, fixing bugs, and not necessarily new content, which all of this stuff will probably be in the patch notes next week. They did confirm a couple new things, and that's a couple perks coming to Warzone. The first is called Reactive Armor. It'll be a red perk, which should be in slot 2. This one kind of seems a little weird, but let me describe it. They described it as reactive armor will regenerate up to 50% of your plates if you haven't taken damage in the last 5 seconds. I feel like this one's gonna be a little bit weird because you're only gonna use this when you have 0 plates. Think about it, you're not gonna wait a full 5 seconds to plate up. If you get shot at and you're running away, you're gonna instantly wanna plate and not wait those 5 seconds to spare 1.5 plates. I think this is okay, but in my opinion, I would have loved something like Siphon in Fortnite, where if you get a kill, you instantly get a plate or 2. We're gonna have to wait and see how reactive perk actually plays out, but from what I can read in the patch notes, I don't think this one's gonna be that good. The second perk coming is called Low Profile.
I think those who may use it are the ones who rat up a little bit more, I think. So it's definitely in their favor, but no one wants to play up against a rat anyway.
Blue perk in slot 1, and this one will come out in the mid-season update. In essence, it'll kind of be like Stalker, but only in crouch or prone. You're gonna move faster when crouching or proning. They're giving us 2 perks, which honestly are pretty useless, but next week we'll have the full patch notes of things that they're fixing and a lot of changes coming to Warzone. So I don't expect much from this specific blog update, as it's just a content update. They then go on to confirm the changes coming in Season 2. They talk about the faster weapon swap speed and reload speed adjustments, the changes to the new jump mechanics, and they even hinted at bunny hopping returning. But I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna hold my excitement until I actually play the game, because honestly, they promised us this so many times, and then the game comes out and it's horrible. I think a lot of how this season will feel is solely gonna depend on one thing and one thing only. Yes, the weapon swap speeds and the reload speeds are amazing, and bunny hopping being back is pretty cool, but if people can actually play the game, then what's the point? I really hope they put a lot of energy into fixing these bugs, because I play this game every day, and I promise you, I cannot go 2 minutes without finding some type of bug. It's gotten to the point where I've adapted to these bugs, and I know workarounds to almost all of them. We simply just need the ability to play the game. If you hadn't noticed yet, the anti-cheat is something that they always keep hush-hush. There is a glaring lack of communication when it comes to this. And even though they've said, hey, in Season 2, we're making some changes, and even Season 3, they're making even more changes, honestly, to the common person, no one knows what they're actually doing. Now, I understand this is a roadmap and not actual patch notes, but I really hope next week we get some type of detailed information on what Ricochet is actually doing to stop these cheaters. No matter what changes with the actual game, whether they make weapon swap speeds faster, reduce penalties, all this stuff, that's all great. But if we keep running into cheaters every single game, what's the point? If I cannot play one single game of Warzone without running into one hacker or one bug, what's the point of having weapon balancing if I can't even play the game? I really do hope they address something when it comes to the anti-cheat, because honestly, this is worse than OG Verdansk. Now, the next thing isn't Warzone specific, but we are getting 4 new guns. The PPSH, as you know, is a huge fan favorite. That is returning. Which, if anybody at Activision happens to see this, please make that gun viable. The Cypher 091, which kind of looks like the Graza. The Fang 82.
The Graza, or I said like the Tempest Razorback. I think that's what it looks like.
And lastly, the TR2, which is essentially the FAL. Now,
this is the FAL, and I think this kind of looks like the Scar, even though it's an LMG.
And lastly, the TR2, which is essentially the FAL. Now, I'm going to go ahead and assume that 2 out of 4 of these are going to be incredibly broken, so make sure to get your wallets ready, because you know there's going to be some type of blueprint in the store to make these super, super broken. Later in the blog, they went on to go over their bundles and how the Terminator is returning, but there is one thing that I actually think is pretty cool. They'll be selling a bundle that directly benefits the fire relief in Los Angeles.
Good for them.
And honestly, with the amount of L's that Call of Duty's been taking lately, I'm glad they decided to do this. That's actually a W. All of the proceeds in there will go directly to the fire relief. So Activision, Call of Duty, good for you guys.
Nice job.
So this is where we stand now. I'm going to be honest with you. I do not think that this update is the end all be all, but I do think that the time is now. And if things do not improve before Verdansk drops, it is over. I do think that the play here was to stop working on bundles and all this content and focus on fixing the game first. Call of Duty says they're gonna fix the bugs, work on the anti-cheat, and honestly, those are the things they should be addressing right now, because when people come back for Verdansk, and if they are running into hackers every single game, they will not come back. Here's to hoping next week we get some good changes and finally they can move things in the right direction. But as you've seen, they always say this, and sadly, every year, it's the same routine over and over again. They hype up the new Call of Duty, they integrate it into Warzone, it comes out broken, and they fix it 2 to 3, 4 months later. Then they make the game playable, and then finally, when the new
unplayable.
integration happens the next year, everything is reset back to 0. So let's see what happens next week. As you know, we'll be covering everything. Thank you guys as always for tuning in. We appreciate you guys. Catch you guys later.
Is Verdansk gonna save Call of Duty? I mean, people might come back and play it. I don't know if they're actually gonna stick around for it. I don't think it's gonna save it personally. There was a poll taken on X or Twitter, depending on what you call it. I still call it Twitter. And I think Charlie Intel or Modern Warzone did that poll, and it like a good 80%, I think, for what I saw, said it's not gonna save Warzone whatsoever. And I agree, right? It's more nostalgic, but it's not gonna bring back to what it was to what it is now. There's no way. But we'll just have to wait and see what season 2 brings. I'm glad to bring in some new guns in again, but if it's still the same as it has been for the last like 2 months, we just have to stop playing it and let them figure it out.